Welcome, welcome. So, first class of the year. I was going to say 1st of January, but it's not 1st of January, it's the 3rd of January. Don't know why I was going to say it's first class of the year, 2024. And it is going to be a really interesting year. Lots of beautiful energies coming in, interesting energies, lots for us to experience, lots of healing, lots of processing, lots of letting go. And I've broken it down. I've got some core themes for us to look at for the year, some just overarching themes for the year for us to kind of hold on to for the year 8. And then I've, focused on a couple of things which are really important for us to hold as well in our awareness in terms of some self-care for the year 8, how we can look after ourselves in this year. So I won't be looking at the number 1 at all. I think with last year when we looked at number 11, and we've got quite a lot of information around the number 1, and we're just going to step out of that because the year 8 has a lot for us to really focus on. So when we look at the year 8, the number 8, what it brings to us, and the year itself, it is a year of power, abundance, sovereign truth, sovereign identity. Okay. So already when we start to step into just those 4 elements, this power, this abundance, and sovereign truth and sovereign identity. When we look at the number 8, 8 is very much the abundance number. So when we look at numerology and, we look specifically even at the Chinese chart, 8 is probably the most auspicious number, right? And it is the number of power. So when we have the number 8 with us, we're really stepping into that frequency of power. But where is power all coming from? Power is not in the mind. Power is not in the heart. Power is a solar plexus energy. It's a solar plexus quality. So the whole frequency of 8 is all linked into our solar plexus. Okay, so let's step out a little bit. Last year, we focused on, we're not in focus, it was the number 7. So the whole theme of last year was this spiritual transformation. Remember, goop year. I claimed it first. I claimed that terminology first, right? So it was this goop year, this caterpillar goop transforming into the butterfly. And this was for us going through the spiritual transformation. The year before that, 2022 was the year of patterns. We definitely felt those years. Do you remember? Like, oh my God, this again. Oh my God, this again. Transformation, this letting go. And what we're learning as we look at the years, we're learning that each year allows us and opens us up. It opens up our field and it transitions us beautifully into the next year's frequency. So all the work we did in our spiritual transformation year is all now, if you want to use the word funneled or channeled into this year of stepping into our true self. Solar plexus is all about the self. 8 is about the emergence of our true identity. When we talk about sovereign truth and sovereign identity, the true self is emerging. So we needed all of those layers to be peeled off for the new to emerge. Does that make sense? How can we get into that if we hadn't seen all the patterns from the previous year, if we hadn't done all of that work and we hadn't gone through those cycles of clearing and healing? So again, when we look at year 8, we see it as this lemniscate, the infinity. So already we know, right? We've got loops coming in again. Okay. Whereas last year was around the spiritual transformation, which opens us up into true identity. What's our true identity? that we are both human divine, heaven and earth, the lemniscate, right? Above and below. And the middle point is the heart. But also the lemniscate takes us into that cycle of dark night of the soul. It takes us into that pattern of descending, healing, clearing, letting go, and the path of ascension. And it's only through that, and we've spoken so much about this in the classes, you know, the cycle. We've spoken a lot about the Venus codes. We've spoken a lot about Inanna. You know, Inanna's been a wonderful mentor to assist us, you know, and the moon cosmology is beautiful. They're just beautiful energies and mentorship coming in from them to teach us about the cycle of stepping into that dark, stepping into that shadowy aspect, letting go as we transform, transmute, and allow the new to emerge. And we rise up in the new. So the year 8 has a very fiery element. So solar plexus is all fire. Okay, all fire. Which also, sorry, I forgot to mention, you know, power has a beautiful quality, but in balance, because power out of balance has a lot of distortion. And a lot of what we see in our reality is because of the misuse of power, right? And how we can misuse our energy with others, how we are trying to establish our space, how we reclaim our space, set our boundaries. You know, 8 is also about boundaries. Solar plexus is all about boundaries. It's about reclaiming your energy, bringing your identity back, calling it back, holding your space. So that power is something we're going to have to really learn to work with this year. We'll see, you know, as we talk about the other elements, why it's important for us to learn to keep these top kind of 4 qualities of the year 8, which is power, abundance, truth, and identity. We really need to learn to keep them in balance, because I think we can experience challenges with them. So again, year of abundance, year of expansion. Abundance doesn't only mean money. Everyone goes, oh, yay, money. It doesn't just mean money. You know, like we talk about manifestation, we're running this, you know, I'm running the manifestation container. It's not just about money. It's not about that. It's about being in this abundant flow, which is universal energy. It's universal life force. Universal creation is about abundance. All things, everything that is in existence and that will ever be in existence is in creation already. And that is what we can step into when we work with the number 8. Okay. So looking at that fire element, you know, I thought about that and I thought, just important to note that fire doesn't have to be destructive, and it doesn't have to have a hard element to it. We all know how beautifully healing, calming, sedative, transfixing gazing into a fire can be. It is beautifully healing in its soft element as well, on that softer element. Does that make sense? That's probably not the right word when I say softer element, but you know, that fire can be really masculine and just destroy and, you know, transform everything in an instant. But wow, like just gazing into a fire, you know, looking at your fireplace, looking at a candle is so healing for us. And there's a gentleness there. So we can really use this element of fire in both ways. And I think that discernment, you'll need to play around with that discernment. Understand what requires which aspect of the fire element for you. I think it's going to be a fiery year. You know, when we look at the energies coming in, like astrologically and cosmically, and looking at all the other elements which are coming in, it's definitely going to be a fiery year. So to help bring that balance for ourselves so that we can stay in balance with the fire element of the year 8. Try and see where you need to step into the softer side of the fire. I'm going to call it the feminine side of the fire. Not that, people refer to it that way, but it's just as an explanation tool for the class. Yeah. So work with that. Then we look at the number 8 itself, what is our soul doing? Our soul has separated from source and it's going through its evolutionary. Actually, I just realized I've actually got a figure 8 there. As I'm talking, I just use my hand as an explanation point, right? Duh. So we've got, when we look at that figure 8, we look at it from that macrocosmic point of view of the soul evolutionary journey, of that separation from source. And as it goes, as it has these experiences in matter, in density, and it moves through that descending and rising back into source. So with that, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be revisiting some of our patterns. Right. And here what we see is very much, because this is a dark night of the soul, right? This is that growth process, that transformation. That transformation doesn't come without us stepping into the darkness, without us releasing and surrendering something that is in distortion for us. We need to do that to allow our cells to hold more light, for our DNA to hold more of the crystalline quotient so that we can become more enlightened. And as we become more enlightened, so does our frequency return back into those higher dimensions. Right? So what we're going to see with the year 8 is, and this is something I really feel and quite strongly, is that we're going to start to see this split realities. Okay. So looking at what we have on a soul perspective, our soul growth over the last couple of years. So the last couple of years have been really challenging. We've had some really intense energies coming through cosmically. I mean, last year was a doozer in terms of solar flares and, astrological alignments and conjunctures and eclipse seasons and things which were bringing massive bouts of energy. I don't know if you saw, we had a massive X-class flare the other day. I think it's the highest to date, if I'm not mistaken. Not the highest to date. No, last year, January was the highest one we've ever had, isn't it? No. Nino's going, no.
There was a monster in 2017.
Oh, that was the one 7 years ago, right? That was the highest.
Yeah. But then like 2 weeks ago, we had this one, which was the biggest one since 2017. And then on New Year's Eve, we had another one, which was twice the size of the one from 2 weeks ago, which was, again, the biggest one again since 2017, but still not as big as the one from 7 years ago.
Okay.
We had two really big ones recently.
Yeah. So, and I remember last year when we started the classes, I remember saying the same thing. January always packs a punch, doesn't it? It's the first, it's the number one, it's that creation, right? It's the emergence of the new. So it's really clearing out all the old so that we can step into the new. I don't want to talk about the 1 energies because there's so much to talk about the 8 energies. But if you go back into last year's classes, we started off January with 3 massive, I think they were like M-class flares and an X-class flare within a couple of days apart from each other. It was a doozy. That was right in the beginning of the year as well. So the universe delivers, the cosmos is providing us the tools for the healing that is required. Okay? And as we are stepping into these higher frequencies and these higher frequential timelines, which are coded with higher codes, the universe has to match that. So it keeps bringing in that frequency that is going to assist in the clearing and the transformation for all particles of life. So that's really important to remember. So going back into what I was saying about the split realities, for me, I feel this quite strongly, that we're going to start to see this split level of like evolution, if you want to call it. So those who have been stepping into and doing the work, right? Stepping into the last couple of years and really working on their healing, clearing, transmuting, and ascension, we're going to see that, yes, they're still going to experience the figure of eight. We cannot not experience it. It's there. That is a geometric frequency that is there within the field. We're going to experience it. It's part of the soul evolutionary growth. It's happening, you know what I mean? We see that sacred geometry, that fractal pattern happening all through the cosmos. So we're going to definitely still experience it, but I believe that it's going to be a lot quicker for us. We may not experience it in as much of the density, or we may not go through some of those really long, dark nights of the soul that we've had in other years. Because thinking about what we're doing as we're stepping out into the solar plexus, you know, if we bring this alignment point with power abundance, sovereign identity, sovereign truth, you know, sovereign is in itself, it's a very powerful consciousness. Sovereignty means we've reclaimed our truth. We've reclaimed our entire field. Our energy does not exist outside of us, right? So if we're stepping and holding that in our field, in our container, then we're still going to be going through these loops. But for me, what I see, it's almost like an escalator. It's quicker. We'll be looping through them quicker, and we may not experience them in as much distortion as before, because before we were still getting stuck. We weren't understanding. We weren't holding. We hadn't, you know, whenever I think of sovereignty, I always go back to Thekla, you know, the one who reclaimed herself, the one who baptized herself. She's like, no, you don't get to do that. I do this. I stand here. I stand in this fire, you know, in this fire. I reclaim myself. You don't have that authority over me. So once we hold that consciousness within us, once we embody that, we can really go through these cycles in a more flowful experience. Does that make sense? Rather than some of this heaviness and, oh my God, this again, like, oh, you know, like, why? Why this again, right? Now, I say that, but there also comes when we talk about the self-care, it's going to sound a little bit contradictory, but it's also because of the energies which are coming in. So a lot of the self-care that we need to do, and I'll step into that in a little bit, is all about really looking after the vessel, okay? Because of the energies which are coming in this year are really going to catalyze us into dealing with challenges, stepping into being courageous, making changes, transforming. So I'll step into that a little bit. So if you're going through your dark night of the soul and you're going through like a mental body crisis or an emotional body crisis or a spiritual body crisis, you're like, Nikki said it was going to be easier. Just remember, there is a caveat here. We are still having to go through these challenges. If we keep coming back to what the year 8 holds for us and what it teaches us, think of it as a master. Think of each year as a master in itself. It's teaching us how to embody this frequency of true identity, this true self that is in emergence, right? So as we keep coming into that, we can balance what's happening within the emotional, mental, physical body, because that's also the human experience. We're always going to experience that. Okay. Unfortunately, for those who haven't really stepped into the work, you know, I do think, well, I feel this is what I see, and what I feel is that they will continue to do their figure of eight, their lemniscate, but in a descending frequency. There's going to be a lot of stuckness. There's just going to be a lot of distortion there. And that's going to feel quite dense for them, and it's going to be quite challenging. Now, how do we manage our interactions? If we have people who are very close to us, people we're working with, loved ones, whatever it is, who are, if we're in interactions with people like this, and this is where we need to really learn to hold that space for us, because their frequency is 100% going to affect your frequency. Like, you could be in the chirpiest of moods, like, hi, how are you? And you're like, 3 seconds later, your energy is like, right? It's frequency, it's energy. So this is where I use the word boundaries a little bit earlier. Boundaries is a solar plexus frequency. It's about us learning to hold that energy, and it's for us learning what our self-care and our responsibility is around that. I think in the previous years, and I know we have spoken about it in the previous years, we all wanted to step in and save everyone and help everyone. And we've realized it's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to continue to do this work and to step into our own healing, because we are everyone and everyone is us. So by shifting our frequency, it will shift that collective frequency, and they will experience that frequency of healing. It's up to them to take it on board or not. And we spoke about this, I think, in the last class, just before we had the December break. Nino, I think you asked some questions around, if someone's doing healing, what happens with the others, particularly if there's close people in the family and things. So, that energy is just going to move through, and it's up to that person to embrace that energy or not. So one of the other things is that there's also going to be a loss and a letting go, which we are going to still be noticing. We noticed this last year. So we noticed in the spiritual transformation year, the 7-year, there was this emergence of new realities, and we had to learn to hold that. We had to learn to hold different perspectives that people had. You could be completely on the same page with someone, but they could be experiencing it in a very different reality to you, or have very different ideas and opinions still on certain things to you. And it was for us to learn to hold that. So here again, we are still going to be seeing a loss, because the year 8, because of the fiery element, the transformational element, we still have the Phoenix codes emerging in the year 8 for us. So the Phoenix codes are the death, rebirth, and reemergence, which is life. Okay, so from the embers, from the ashes, do we rise? Does the new arise? Okay, but we have to go through that. We have to allow things to completely fall away. And that can be the hard element for us. So we may find this year that there may be some unexpected losses that we may have, some ideas which we are holding, because remember, the solar plexus is very much about our mental construct of ourselves and our reality. So we may notice some ideas shifting quite rapidly for us, something that we were 100% gung-ho on, absolutely set, resolute on, and that could change for us. Because as this new is emerging, it may emerge in a way beyond our understanding, but that is the emergence that the soul always requested. It's not the emergence from the limiting or constructed mind. So solar plexus, there's a lot of mental body clearing. And this is why I said there's that caveat, when I spoke about the the split realities, and those who are doing the work may be experiencing it in a slightly more graceful, easier, flowful state. Well, the caveat there is that solar plexus is all about the mental body. The fire element's all about the mental body. And it's all about that mental construct. So we are going to see a lot of that nervous system triggering, a lot of activation in our nervous system, a lot of discordance going into the emotional body. Okay, so important for us to recognize that and do some work around that. So we had access. So there was a huge influx of Phoenix codes that came through from our summer solstice, the 21st of September. So we really saw a huge rise in the frequency and consciousness of the Phoenix codes. And that's all about the transformation, but it's only through the death. Okay. So remember that we're still in that. Year 8 continues to bring this to us. And we open ourselves up into allowing things to burn. Let it go, let it transform into the ashes. And it's just like we spoke about in the December classes, where we spoke about decomposition, right? When we fully surrendered and we let things decompose, that became the fertilizer that nourished the soil, that nourished our frequency for the new to arise. So we're still working with that here. Okay. And then we've got a very interesting dynamic between this fire element of the year 8, fiery element of the year 8, and we've also got the dragon energy coming in. So gotta love a dragon. I know quite a lot of you here also love your dragons. So we've got our dragons are out. So we've got the year of the dragon in terms of the Chinese horoscope. Okay. But it's a wood dragon. So in February, we have the wood dragon, which steps into the horoscope, the Chinese New Year. So we've got this element of wood and we've got this element of fire, which are actually, how do they interweave with each other? What do they bring to us? And this was really interesting when I sat with this one. And it was so beautiful. I was like, wow. So the wood is very symbolic of the old self that needs to be cleared. So if you remember in the last couple of classes in December, I think maybe in the beginning of December, I was talking about there was almost like that husk that we had that was being broken off so that the new could emerge. Don't know if you remember me speaking about that. Yeah. So it takes us back into that. The wood is this hard construct, belief, the distortion that's still there within us that needs to transform. Okay, so the wood acts as that element. So in one of the aspects, the wood is bringing us that. So we step in as this vessel, right? And we step into the fire. But that has to completely deconstruct. The fire completely deconstructs the wood until it becomes nothing but softness. Right? So there's a lot of that teaching coming through for us to really learn to soften ourselves through the experiences, because this year is going to bring a lot of experiences for us so that the true self can emerge. Okay, so there's this softening that is required. This is why this letting go and surrendering is so important, because if the wood holds on, not that the wood would be able to hold on against the fire, right, but if it could hold on, the fire couldn't transform it. But we know our mind is going to be that stubborn piece of wood and it's going to hold on, right? So allow this softening, allow things to really dissolve. Even if it feels like it's dissolving and you're like, oh my God, I don't know where this is going, like I don't recognize this anymore, or I don't have anything left. That's probably the best place to be at. That's what wood teaches us. The other thing that wood also teaches us is, remember that the trees, they are the ancient wisdom keepers. There's a lot of mythology around the trees being the ones who seeded the earth, that allowed all of creation to exist. Okay? And if you look at the trees, they have this fantastic neural network underground, through their root system. Their roots are their neural network. And a mother tree can connect to her, is it called sapling tree? Sapling tree, right? And she can, through that network, will know if that sapling requires certain nutrients, if it requires protection because it's being endangered or anything like that. And it will send that energy and that frequency through. And through connecting to a tree, you can connect to any part or any tree in this country through the network. You can gain that wisdom, right? So the wood, the message that the wood brings us for this wood year, this dragon wood year, is that there is going to be a returning of ancient wisdom if we allow ourselves to step into it. Okay? So the wood is going to bring back a lot of ancient wisdom, because we know that we have some trees around which are thousands of years old. They might just be stumps, but those networks are alive under the ground. So we can really have access to that. So there's the return of ancient wisdom, codes, templates, and timelines will be restored as we release the hard casing of the old and transform and transmute so that we can allow ourselves to be resurrected from the embers. Okay, and that's the wisdom that the wood brings us this year. Carried on the back of the dragon, all fire, embers, right? Okay. So when we so before I go into that, because I'm aware that I've given a lot of information, so I'm going to take a pause and just see if anyone has any questions or wants to add anything to that before I go into looking at some of the qualities of the dragons, and particularly the wood dragon. Yes, Anna.
Well, I just wanted to add a bit. I listened to some woman who was doing numerology rather than, so she was going about 8, practically the same, but she was coming from, it's been a karmic year. So whatever we sort of sowed in the previous years is going to come either as a reward or maybe punishment for some people, who were not behaving that well, And also that it's going to be a year of power, but in a different way, that the power will belong to smaller people. So masses will dictate a lot of outcome, maybe in elections or somewhere it can be a revolution, something like that. So people will try sort of to govern themselves rather than listen to the figures of authority.
True identity. So again, when you reclaim your identity, you reclaim that power. No one has that authority outside of you. So that's very much in line with that. And I like that what you're saying about the karmic, because that's exactly it, and that's what I was talking about, that split personality. Maybe 8 brings split personality. No. Split realities is that, those who haven't done the work are going to experience that in that density. but I do think that we can clear, like we are here, we are walking that our Akashic records, we are clearing all of that karmic debt, right? And I do think that it can happen a lot quicker if we balance those first 4 elements of the number 8. I really think that those are the ones to really focus on. But yeah, I think that's really interesting and very, similarly themed. Yeah. Who was that, Anna, just as a reference point? Do you remember?
It's some kind of Indian lady, I think. Well, she was wearing kind of sari. Well, she speaks
Yeah.
good English, but with a bit of an accent. So I'm not sure. She might live maybe in Canada or USA or something like that. But well, if you want to, I can find her. It was funny because I found her by chance, and then I started listening. It was very interesting. And then she was going about a personal year for everybody that you add to the 8. The number of your birth and the months. Let's say I'm born on the 31st of October. That's 311. So it's 5 plus 8, 13. But it has to be a single number. So you add till you get the number from 1 to 9, obviously. So I'm 4. And actually, looking at the previous years, she was quite spot on. Because there was some years when I wanted to be alone. That was a solitude year. Let's say, year 7. And like, if somebody's interested, I can find her.
Oh, definitely. Because I've not heard about the adding. So when I do the numbers, I do the whole year. So it will be like 3110 and then whatever year you were born, and that gets your numbers. Mm-hmm. But she's saying it's just the month and the day and then the year that you're in.
Yeah, it's just for the personal year number, So
okay.
Every year you can count sort of like what sort of year is going to bring you. Mm-hmm. So the previous year for everybody was in general solitude, 7. It was a desire to be alone, spirituality, which definitely worked for me actually. But that's for the whole collective. But if you add your date of birth to it, then that will give you your additional sort of year, what was for you personally in this year, apart from the general theme.
We're 7, personal solitude. Here we go.
I'll let you work ours out for me.
I'll be retreating for the rest of the year. Sorry, guys. Right. Yeah, please send it, Anna. It'll be lovely to have a look at that. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anyone else wanted to add before I continue? No? Okay. So let's look at dragons. Love dragons, right? Beautiful, beautiful. I love dragons and I love the energy that dragons bring us. So firstly, when we look at the element of the wood dragon, it brings the element of strength, courage, bravery. Okay. So think about those words: strength, courage, bravery, in the fiery year, in the loops, dark nights of the soul. So hence why I say mental, that nervous system work is required. So when we look at those 3 main qualities of the wood dragon, strength, courage, bravery, it really shows us and tells us that this year is going to bring a lot of, I say the word challenges, but we should really reframe that because we're conditioning ourselves already to see them as challenges. It's going to bring a lot of experiences for growth. And we get to choose, and like you were saying, karmically, we get to choose how we want to grow. Do we want to step into the ascending flow of the figure of 8 and go into that expansive energy? Or do we want to step out of it and go into that spiraling down energy? I'm not talking about, the descending, the pathway, like the Inanna pathway. I'm not talking about that because that is always important for us to learn to step into that womb portal, for us to emerge ourselves into that darkness so that we can heal. We can only ascend once we've done that. We can only go into flow once we've done that. So that's kind of a prerequisite for us to go into expansive flow. So we are going to have a lot of experiences for growth. There's going to be particular months which are highlighted as growth experience months for us this year collectively. And I'll talk about that when we look at the astrology. But it's really important for us to kind of look at stepping into this inner strength that we've been building. And I really believe that our practice, if we have a formalized practice, that formalized practice really helps us develop that resilience within us. It helps us have a foundation to land into, like when we are in, that learning experience, when things are feeling very distorted for us. And I'm sure most of you, and I've seen this, like it's almost 27 years I've been working now. And I see this all the time, when people are in discomfort and suffering, they do the work. But as soon as that passes, they're done. They can't even spell work. You know what I mean? They're like, what? Work? I don't understand. Please use English. Like, what are you speaking? I don't understand what you're saying. Right? So this formalized practice is going to become really important for us. And it's one of the things that I've highlighted as part of our self-care, because it gives us that foundation. It allows us to land safely in ourselves so that we can meet that experience. And then we choose. It's a choice point year. You can either do the work and work on the ascension, or you can choose to step out, because it's all about the true self emerging. And you get to choose that each and every day. You get to choose the identity you stand in, the frequency you stand in. Who holds your power? Who has that authority over you? You get to choose that. Yeah. So that inner strength is really important, because it really helps us cultivate that resilience. And for me, like, the go-to is always the practice for that. Courage. Okay. So the dragon brings this element of courage for us. And again, fiery year. It's a year of a lot of change for us. Things are burning to embers. And as I said a little earlier on, be prepared for something to completely transform in a way that you just didn't expect, right? And that requires the courage for us to continue to step in and step out. Okay? Courage is an important one. And we all know, come Lionsgate, 8-8 portal, everyone's like, yay, go courage, fire, lion, yay, we're all embodying our, courage and our true identity and our power. Well, this year is one big, massive Lionsgate portal. Think about it that way, right? It's about us really holding that. And courage also really opens us up into making those changes which are required, stepping away from something if it needs to be stepped away from, using your voice, this identity, this power that moves up and out. Can we use it in a way that's healing and transforming to others as well? Use your voice, reclaim your space, state your boundaries. So there's a lot there. And I think, there's going to be a lot around conversations which are going to be required in this year as well. Because for the true identity to emerge, it needs a voice. Does it not? It can emerge in presence, but at some point, it needs a voice. And for most of us, finding the voice is the hardest part because of the suppression of the voice for so long. We've even grappled to understand our identity. We've even grappled to vocalize our true identity and sometimes our beliefs to ourselves, and then to be able to share that outwards. So that's also quite important. And bravery for me is very similar to, the courage, because it talks about a lot of the internal challenges or learning experiences that we're going to have, as well as the external ones. There is this internal transformation. The Phoenix codes are working internally as well. There's a whole new you that is stepping out. Okay. And again, mental body, we are freeing ourselves from those mental constructs and those limiting beliefs, those viral programs, which have been coded into our DNA through the bloodline. And it's important that we let that go. We really surrender that. Okay. Any questions up until that point before I step into self-care, or anything anyone wants to add? Okay. Oh, so sorry. One more thing about the dragons I forgot to add. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but people often say, oh, dragons are, mystical, mythological, they don't exist. I think, again, we talk about our voice, finding, the courage to speak what we want to say. I've always had a dragon as a guide for decades. But when we look at the angelic realm, people don't have a hard time accepting the angelic realm, right? We talk about angels, archangels, everyone's like, yep, got it. It's in the Bible. It's there. No one really bats an eyelid if you've got a picture. I mean, my room's full of angels, right? No one bats an eyelid. But what we don't really, unless you look at the order of the angelic realm, what we don't realize is that the angels and the archangels are in the lowest order of the angelic realm. So the order of the angelic realm, there's nine aspects of angels. Okay, and it's broken up into 3 tiers. And the highest order is made of the seraphims, the cherubim, and the thrones. The middle is the dominions, the virtues, the powers, and the lower one is the principles, the archangels, and the angels. Okay. Now, when we look at dragons, what are dragons? Okay. Dragons are the seraphims. They are the highest order of all of creation. They are the beings in the womb of no thing. So when the womb of no thing, when the black womb of no thing activates and creates a spark, an emanating spark, it is the dragons which carry, the seraphims, which carry the frequency, the Sophia consciousness through the cosmos to become manifest in the mind of God. Who's the mind of God? We are also the mind of God. We are manifesting our reality. So from the womb, the dark womb, remember, no thing, and from no thing, all of existence is created. So it's that frequency that is created that sends out and it sparks out as that light through the cosmos. It's the seraphims that carry that. It's the dragons. Why have they been bastardized? Right? Okay. Most of us, when we connect, you don't hear people talking about, oh, I'm connecting in with the dominions, or I'm connecting in with the cherubims. I'm channeling a cherubim today. Have you heard anyone say that? I've not, to be perfectly honest. Has anyone ever channeled a throne or a virtue? There might be. It's just because it's not in my awareness. But in my current point of awareness, I'm not aware of anyone who's talking about, I'm channeling the thrones. I'm channeling the principles right now. We know about the angels and the archangels. They're in the lowest. The dragons are the seraphims. So again, just stepping into that, we're in this year, this power year. We've just come out of our spiritual transformation year. We're in this year of stepping into our true identity, the 8th year. And that year is being carried with this dragon energy, the womb, everything we've been talking about last year, all of creation. We're really stepping into connecting with the primordial source of creation. Something that is dark and light, dragons, like people are scared of the dragons, they feared, why they feared, but again, I'm not going to say too much because that could be a whole class in itself, could be 2 classes in itself. But again, think about it. We're stepping into this wood element. This is why the ancient wisdom's coming through. This is really about us learning to step into that dark and become nothing so that the new can emerge. It's that womb cosmology again. This wooden dragon, fiery energy is going to take us right back into the womb cosmology if we can work with it. Yeah. And really from a high consciousness, from a high primordial consciousness element. Okay, so I'll leave that there. I just wanted to add that because I thought it was quite important. Of course, if there's any questions, I'm happy to go into them. Yeah? Any questions? No? Okay. This is why also they have a mystical or a mythical element. A lot of people can't tap into them because of their frequency. You don't, it's like a crystal, you don't choose the crystal chooses you, the dragon chooses you. You have to be worthy to hold that frequency. So when a crystal chooses you, it's a very honoring process because you're worthy to hold that frequency, right? So we really have this emergence coming back, which is going to really open up the field, I think. It's going to bring a lot of change in the field, this dragon energy. Okay, so let's look at some self-care for this year. Really important, I think, for this year. Firstly, nervous system work. We've been speaking about it. We've been stepping into some nervous system work. I'm going to do some nervous system work this year. It's really important for us. We have to learn to regulate the nervous system so that we can get out of the survival mode that we're in, so that the true self can emerge. The true self is only going to emerge if our system is in safety, if our system is in that parasympathetic nervous system where it's opened, where we can connect with ourselves, with the higher realms, with our I am presence, and we can connect with the collective. But if we're in this nervous system activation, if we're in our sympathetic nervous system, this fight, flight, freeze response, fawn response, it's not going to happen. So this nervous system work is really important because we know how much the nervous system affects our thoughts and our emotions. Okay. So the next bit of work as we are working on the nervous system is to build the capacity for emotional intelligence. Starting to create this time to step into understanding or developing an awareness and a level of understanding of your emotions and learning to regulate your emotions. Remember, we had the emotional wheel last year that we worked on. That one, I always use that one when I'm working with clients in terms of doing nervous system work and helping them, regulate their nervous system and build that mental resilience and emotional regulation. It's so beautiful because it starts to give us a vocabulary. So I can send that out again if anyone needs that, but that is a beautiful one for us to use to help Okay. And then also this regulating our emotions is really important. We can't keep reacting. We have to respond. If we're reacting, we are going to be creating a distortion within our power. So you're of power. You react with that out of alignment. You're creating a lot of distortion in your field. And your reality is going to become, or you are potentially going to be experiencing a very dense version of your reality. And it's not needed. We can really choose to step into that higher frequencies, like I see them as those thermal lifts. We'll have those thermal lifts, which will help lift us up. So, another way of thinking of these solar flares is a thermal lift rather than a solar flare, right? Oh, and Caroline, that's also why, your mom's probably got the headache. We've had some really intense. So the body is clearing out a lot of this density. And I don't know if you know, I think most of you know, like I'm a really cold bird. Like I've always got cold hands, cold feet. I lived in Asia, a tropical country, 32 degrees every day of the year, and my hands and feet were cold. Like sometimes I'd go to bed with socks on, like, do you know what I mean? Like you have an aircon and I'm going, like, put socks on. But last night, the last 2 nights, I was sweating, hot. Like last night, I pulled the blankets off and had my feet hanging out over the bed. My husband's like, who are you? It's the solar flare. It's the thermal lift. It's, the fiery energy kicking in. So there's a lot that our body is working with, and we're going to experience these cosmic waves coming in, and the density in the vessel is going to meet that, so it can be deconstructed for the new to emerge. So wherever that density exists, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all of it, all in one go, you could have a woozer, or you could just have different aspects of it. So that'll be them. So the other thing to focus on is learn to reflect. So what I mean when I say learn to reflect is when we look at the mind is often very chaotic. Okay? So let the mind and the emotional body, which is the waters, be a reflection of each other in stillness and peace. So all of your self-care is designed to allow the mind, if we're doing all this work on the nervous system, regulating our emotions, building this mental resilience, once the emotions are regulated, the waters in our body, because that's the water body, right? The emotional body is the water element, becomes that beautiful, pristine, crystal clear lake that reflects the sky. Exactly. Sometimes, when you see that picture and you're not certain which is the sky and which is the water, you seen that? That's what I'm saying. Let them be a reflection of each other in perfect stillness and peace. That's the level we need to be working at this year. Formalized practice. Keywords, okay? Formalized practice. Movement, very important. Movement is going to help us release some of this fiery energy and whatever's being transmuted, these phoenix codes. Connection, connecting with nature. Again, we've got the wood element. Spend some time in nature. Go hug a tree. As I mentioned, the meditation. In the meditation, it's also about this connection with the I am presence and the oversoul, and really learning to embody that. Really learning to integrate everything that is in disharmony so that we can be an embodied frequency of the oversoul. That's what we're really working towards, because this year is going to be the year that catapults us. The year 9 is about the spiritual mastery. This is when we're really stepping into becoming the spiritual master. So all the work we do in the year 8 is going to assist us. It'll bring us into those higher 5D, and even touching into the 6D consciousness. And that's what we're really wanting to do, so that we can become embodied in those consciousnesses and hold that within us. And again, reflect that into the collective. Okay. Courage. We spoke about courage before, but also courage is really important for this year. And then learning to see the patterns. 8 is a year of patterns in terms of this loop, this infinity that we keep going through. So learn to see the pattern and discern whether it is a pattern which is expanding your field or contracting your field. And then find the courage to clear the path if you need to. Because even if something is expanding your field, you may realize, actually, for this to continue to expand, I still need to let go of this. Even though I don't want to, I still need to let go of this. Yeah. Solar plexus is all about our digestion. So our diet may need to change this year. It may naturally start to change, or we may have to change our diet. Okay, so that's something that just came up as well. So just hold that in awareness. And if that comes up, we can always have a discussion around that in class, or, message me separately and we can have discussion points around that. And then creativity. Again, this is about, the Phoenix codes. For me, it's also this resurrection, the resurrection of the new self. And for me, this is where creativity comes in. Learning to be creative. Learning to really step into that feminine energy of creativity so that we can start to create that picture of the new self. And I know we're busy doing that, within our container at the moment, but learn to hold that vision of what it is that you're wanting to create in your life and keep working towards stepping into it. Visualize it. Do some sort of creative hobby or task that's going to help you anchor that in. Be creative. Because at the end of the day, who are we becoming? Our true identity is the creator consciousness. We're stepping back into who we are. Right? So if we're not practicing creativity, how do we step fully into that? Right? We've got to. Now, she's probably going to annihilate me for this, but I'll deal with the wrath of it in a bit if it comes. Is Anna, you have some beautiful paintings that you've drawn, and there's that chakra one that I absolutely love, and I forgot to mention it. So like something Anna's just started doing is some drawing, and she's got some beautiful stuff that she's creating. And I don't really draw, but I've been doing codes lately. I've never did art. And, Nina, I know that you're brilliant at drawing, but it's something you've stepped away from. Now, we don't need to draw. Someone may be really good at cooking. Someone may be really good at, like Liz, and I know June, like you love your gardens, stepping into that creativity. Caroline, what is yours? What is your creativity? I know, like Joanne, she also is with flowers and things like that. What is your creativity that you enjoy doing, Caroline?
Can I just say?
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait. Sorry, 1 second. I lost you there.
Oh, sorry. I've booked an art class for me and my mum. It was one of our Christmas presents. So we're doing that in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah.
It's on my Christmas list as well, is to do an art class. Brilliant. Yeah. So this creativity is really, really important. We've all got it in us and we can tap into it. Like, I mean, some of you have seen some of the codes that I draw. Like, if you ask me, oh, can you draw? Nah. I mean, you've seen me draw when I draw for class, like little stick men, right? But some of the stuff that comes out is so beautiful. I look at it and I'm like, I can't believe I did that. It's so beautiful. But we just allow ourselves to do it. Right. And a couple of weeks ago, I was sick. I had that cold that was going around. And I plonked myself on the couch with, one of these mandala books. Right. And I chose all greens and all blues because it was about the emotional body. And I thought this is all about something in the emotional body that needs to be witnessed, needs to be held in love. And I spent the whole day just working on one of these mandalas, just saying affirmation. And you know what? I got better like that because I stepped into this allowing it to just emerge. And I would stop and I would meditate and I would journal. I'd pull a card and then I'd go back to, I literally sat on my butt the whole day, water bottle, blankie, headphones on, listening to my music, and just immersed myself in it. And I think that's important for us to learn to use creativity, not only to create, but to heal. Like I really learned that. So there's something there, and it's important for us to really step into it. And I know Tony, who also catches up on the classes, she's also very, very creative. So I'll have a chat with her separately and find out what her little go-to needs to be. But yeah, let's step into that. And then the last thing in terms of self-care is breath work. Okay. Fiery year, dragon year. So it's breath of fire. You remember breath of fire? So we can do it that way. Another one to do is, I call it the Kali breath. It's called the lion's breath, but I call it Kali breath because you know Kali. And you really do that. So I do the real Kali face, right? And we've got a fireplace and I'll sit in front of the fire, gaze at the fire. I'll maybe put something in paper, or I'll release some herbs or something into the fire, and I really work with the fire element and Kali, and I just breathe staring at the fire, and that really clears a lot. So we can do that. But remember also, because of fiery year, lots of challenges, maybe the nervous system's really activated, emotional body's very dysregulated. We can use the Satali breath, which is the cooling breath, to help cool the body down. Now, I know we did Satali breath quite a while ago, so we may have to revisit this. And the Satali breath is when we are breathing in. So you would imagine that you have a very thin straw in the mouth, and you're sipping the air in, breathing out. So even as you do that, you can feel that coldness coming in, and it really cools the whole body down. So it has a very cooling effect on the nervous system, the inflammation in the internal organs, anything that's happening in the emotional, mental body, any inflamed, fiery conditions in the physical body. So the Satali breath. So you can work with the breath. You can use the fire, the kaba. Oh, I can never pronounce it probably. Kabalatina. Can't say it. I can never say it. The proper name for the breath. I'll send it as a text. The breath of fire, Satali breath, or the Kali breath if you really want to clear it out. And I find that that's when there's a lot of dense emotions, particularly if there's anger or just frustration. That's a good one to do that and really, do the face. And that clear. And then go back into normal breath. Okay, any questions around that? In terms of self-care? No? Okay. So just a little bit more, and we won't have time for meditation tonight. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. Just a little bit more in terms of cosmically and astrologically. Cosmically, we are stepping into the embodiment of experiencing our reality in its truth, which is frequency. So we are becoming frequential. or more resonant. So we are stepping into the embodiment of that truth. We are becoming more harmonious with our resonance. Okay. And this is through the awareness and conscious choices to change our actions and behaviors. So this is what is happening. And that's why I said it's a choice point. Okay. So as we're stepping into this 5D and in the higher elements of 5D, we really are stepping into this timeline of resonance. We're experiencing our reality as resonant and harmonious, expansive and flowful. But we have to consciously make choices around that to stay in that. Okay. And the universe is going to continue to bring in these influxes of cosmic energy. It's not going to lighten up. Liz's face. Okay. Because, and I think your question, Anna, was 2025, wasn't it? What did you say? To read next year in 2025, didn't you?
Do you mean when I asked
About
what the year is going to be, that 2024 is going to be a year of transformation, and then 25, what's going to be 25?
Yeah, I think you said about 2025, because a lot of people are talking about 2025 being the big year, right?
Yes.
Yes, well, it's a spiritual mastery year. So everything that we do this year is going to allow for that to happen. So for us to emerge as a spiritual master next year, this is the final year for us to really clear out all of the old, the wood element, let it really just soften into the embers so that we can resurrect the new master can be birthed. Because the 9 is also that birthing, right? The gestation period. Okay. So it's not going to let up. I didn't look at it in terms of other people, but I just happened to see someone on social media that I really value his work, and I've mentioned him a lot, Robert. Oh my God, why can't I remember names today? Robert. He's the one who's doing that. Oh gosh, never mind. He's the one I shared the thing last year about. They talked about the frequential reality, Robert Edward, yeah, anyway. And he was saying that, and it was just a post he had put up, like I was saying that this year is going to be kind of like a year of it's going to be like solar flares and everything on steroids. All the energies that we've been having in the last couple of years, this year is going to be a very intensified experience of that. And it's really because that's what's required to break down the walls for the next year. And, that felt right when he said that, because it's already what I'd been picking up and what I've been working with for this year. So it's not going to let up. We're going to have quite a bit of energies coming in that we're going to experience. It's going to be specific months which are going to be particularly, I think, challenging for us. But remember that all of this is designed for us to step out of the old self, which means out of the carbon blueprint and into the crystalline divine blueprint, so that we can hold that higher frequency. So there is a little bit of sloughing off that needs to happen. And from an astrological perspective, I'm not going to go too deeply into it, because again, that's a huge thing in itself. We've got Pluto, the planet Pluto, which is the planet of destruction and transformation. And Pluto has been a big player last year. It kept moving in and out of its signs. It came in, created havoc, moved out, came in later in the year, created some havoc, moved out. And this year we're going to have it coming in again, particularly in January, creating havoc, moving out. And then next year it stations, and it stations for, I think, 19 years. But remember, every planet has its dualistic perspective. So, this destruction and transformation also has the positive. So Pluto is busy destroying, it's flattening the terrain of all that is not required for the collective's evolutionary growth. Yeah, because Pluto brings with it the death, rebirth, the life, death, rebirth cycle. Okay, which is exactly what we are experiencing with the year 8. So we've got a year 8 with all of that frequency coming in, and Pluto being a huge influx around that. So guess where Pluto is playing its biggest part this year? January, because it's the energy of one, creation. So it's clearing up so that we can create new. September, the spiritual mastery month. And November, our master creation month. So I didn't dive too much into it because I knew that we wouldn't have time to discuss it in class, but just thinking about those 3 months and thinking about everything we know about those 3 months, we can see that what we think is a destructive element is actually a beautiful ally. Right? It's bringing a lot of gifts to us as it's literally just bulldozing through the density, through the collective field. Okay, so lots happening there for us, but that really helps move us into this spiritual mastery numbers for next year. Okay. So I kept that a little bit shorter than I wanted to because I decided that we could do some Satali breath. We'll do a little bit of breath work, a little bit of centering with some breath work. But before we do breath work, do you have any questions? Is there anything you wanted to add for today?
Just, if it's going to take too long, then maybe you could just park it and do like we did with stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just something. So the 7, I've always heard my whole life that, everyone, your whole life goes in cycles of 7. And I read the other day, when this big solar flare came up, that that solar activity has its peak like every 7 years and then it dies down or something. And that makes total sense now, when you talked about the big one from 7 years ago or something like that. So that's what that Robert Edward Grant guy was talking about this year.
Robert Edward Grant, that's his name.
So we're going to expect like a lot of stuff this year again. And what was the other thing I was going to say? A few years ago, when I first kind of started waking up and started like digging into all the spiritual stuff, everyone was talking about the next few years leading up till 2027 or 2030 are going to be like profound, and the height of it's going to be around where we're at now, isn't it? 2024. There's going to be wars, there's going to be all kinds of stuff. So it seems like every 7 years there's a whole lot of crap that comes around, and I don't know if it's necessarily for us or for the whole collective. I wonder if it's got to do with these solar flares, is what I'm asking, because that's it technically like downloads, right? Or when the flares come about, I mean, the solar activity is information or light or downloads that we're getting, right?
Yeah, it's information.
The next year, essentially what I'm asking is, it's probably going to be a lot of shake-up and a lot of wars and a lot of light and something. It's going to be like a watershed year.
Yeah. Again, fire, when we think about fire, you said the word war. I mean, definitely it does have that. There's a huge potential to have a reality of that because of the fire element. But again, and that's why I wanted to really focus in on those first 4 elements, power, if we can really work on balancing that within our practices, that can also help the collective field as well. But I think we are going to experience it. We are going to see that happening in the field anyway, and it may not be hugely impactful to us. like, and I don't want this to sound insensitive because it's not insensitive, but you know, there was the earthquake, that like the massive earthquake on New Year's Day, and the tsunamis, and you know, it's been quite major. It hardly even hit my radar. Like someone's like, oh yeah, you know, this thing in Japan. I was like, what? How come I've not even heard about it? And I was like, oh, wow. I've been sitting, you know, for weeks now, just holding this like radiant love, you know, been working on the container stuff, like radiant love and like infinite peace, and just holding that it kind of just, it came in, and normally I'd be like, what? Oh, let me go and see, let me go and read, let me go and see something, like, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to step back into these emotions, you know, these higher frequencies, and just radiate that out instead of going into that. So that's why I say we can experience that split realities. So I think that there's definitely timelines and potentials for some catastrophic fiery wars to happen. You know, we've got Aries also going to play its role in a supermoon. You know, that's going to be fun. You know, Aries, the planet of war in a supermoon. So it's, you know, planet of war on steroids. So, and that's April. So that's going to bring a huge element as well, you know. So, but we can also, again, see that, and choice point. Remember I said it's that frequency. We get to choose our frequency. Through the awareness of our frequency, we can continue to hold that frequency and radiate to those events which are happening. The other thing that came through as you were asking your question there, Nino, is that, you know, in the self-care, I said learn to see the patterns, and that's what they said, as you were mentioning, that everything is that repeating geometric pattern. You know, that fractal geometry that I've spoken about before in classes. Okay, so our entire cosmos is made up of this fractal geometry. So this is why we see cycles of things, because it's the fabric of our existence. The other thing is, and I'm going to have to kind of tune into this and see if there'll be more information that comes forward. We are currently working on that 7 cycle, because we, you know, 7 chakras, but we don't have 7 chakras. We only have 7 chakras because our consciousness couldn't hold the awareness and the expansion point of the 12 chakra system, or the 18 chakra system, or the 24 chakra system. Okay. And as we are awakening and ascending, we are able to hold more consciousness, and we're activating, we're opening up these portals. Our chakras are portals. We're opening up these portals in our field. Okay, so I also think that what's going to happen is that we may start to see a change from the 7-year cycle. I think the 7-year cycle is very much linked to the DNA, because we're only on the 2 strands of DNA. It's all to do with our carbon. So we can only work in that 7 cycle. And once we've activated the 12 strands of DNA, I think we'll be working in a completely different geometric pattern. Liz?
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit controversial for a change. I don't know how healthy it is knowing about all the flares, if I'm honest. I don't know how healthy. I just wonder if we don't become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, it's this, it's that. And I don't think it's about that. I think sometimes it's almost too dangerous to know about all this stuff, because we go, that's why. No, that's not why that's happening all the time. Sometimes you just haven't done the work, or you're not doing the work, or you've chosen a different route to ignore the work. And I sometimes think, of course, the obvious point that we all want to be at is where nothing bothers us. because it's as you've just, that's why I'm thinking about it, because you've just said you've got the point where you do exactly what I think is the exact right thing. You don't let it, you don't go for the drama. Oh, oh my God, it's another earthquake, I must have a bit of doom and gloom. You've gone, well, that's not my problem. There's nothing I can do for them except radiate love and light, which is exactly the right reaction I think that you need to have. But I just sometimes wonder, with all of this other stuff, that we latch onto it. And really, we should be oblivious to all of this. We should just be able to work through it and crack on with our own inner work. And how many times we go, that's why I can't do such and such, because of something. And to me, I just tend to not paying attention to a lot of what I think might be coming in, because it just distracts me. And I don't want that distraction, because then I'm not focusing on what I should be focusing on, which is the inner work.
It's a very, very valid point. And what I want to add to that is so it's about, again, it takes us to power. And this is what they were saying as you were talking, Liz. It takes us back to this element of power. So we become victimized. We give our power away. Oh, there's this flare, and and I can't function. And no. And this is why I was saying, even changing it. So I mentioned the words thermal lifts, which is very different to flare, because we're also conditioned now to see the word as flare as something that is going to wipe us out. And choice points. This is a choice point. We get to choose what frequency we want to hold all the time, right? So you can feel stuff coming on. Like I know the other day, I could feel like there was my whole body, and it was only when, I think, Nina, you sent a thing of the flare. I was like, no wonder. Now that explained why. I didn't go searching. I did the work inside. So this thing about holding your power is really important. Going back to what I said before, no one or no thing should have any authority or any control of your power. Everything that comes into your existence, be it an earthquake, be it a shitty manager, be it an annoying child, be it whatever it is, do you know what I mean? A flare, a this, or whatever it is that's coming up, a news line, article, or whatever, right? Hold it in your awareness and you choose your frequency around it. You come back into holding that sovereignty. Yeah, so
I think that's so important, because I think world affairs, we know that's just men being men, isn't it? Like mankind being a bunch of idiots. The solar flares is something different, because that's completely out of our control. But I think if you were to take it all, how can I put it? If you were to focus on that too much and spend your entire time month to month on the floor, because it's always, this month we've got this solar flare, we've got this, we've got that, and you've got, that's why it's okay to be on the floor. And that's why it's so important what you're saying, because actually it's not okay to be down there because you've given up. To me, it's such
not
and such,
this year.
fine. Still crap, it's okay, I'll just blend solar such and such. No, that's not the point, because you spend your entire time, like I said, wiped out, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And particularly this year, about going back to those first couple of words, power, abundance, sovereign truth, sovereign identity. We have to learn to hold those. We have to learn to embody those frequencies, bring those into balance, and not experience them in distortion, So, yeah.
It's what you've taught all the time. It's what you're always teaching, isn't it? But I think it's just, you have been teaching that, and that is the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a very valid point, and thank you for bringing it up. It is important to, be aware of that, and for us to hold that for ourselves. Yeah. Thank you, Liz. Okay. So, do we still have time for some breath work? Are we okay, or do we need to go? Does anyone need to go? No? Do you need to go, Liz? Yeah.
I probably should go, because they're waiting to eat, I think. So
Yeah.
I've got both kids at home, and they'll be like, "Gannets."
So what I'll do is I will record it. We'll just do about 5 minutes or so, 5-7 minutes. I'll record it and I'll send that to you. And do you want the recording of the class, Liz?
No, I'm fine with the breathing. Would be great though.
Okay, so I'll record it on here, and then I'll do that afterwards. So see you next week, Liz. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Does anyone else need to step out before we step into this? No? Okay, so about 5-7 minutes, is that okay? All right. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of just noticing that reflection, stepping into noticing what's happening in the body. And then we'll do some breath work. Okay, so let's get all the gadgets arranged. Okay, can we hear the music? Brilliant. Okay. All right, so let's start stepping into this space. And I'd like to start with eyes open. Keeping your eyes softly focused on a point. And even as you do that, if you find that bringing your awareness to a soft focus is too challenging, so sometimes as we bring our awareness to a soft focus, particularly if there's a lot of dysregulation within the vessel, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, we may find that there's a constriction or an irritation that starts to happen in the body. So there's a lot of distraction that starts to come up. Then what we do is gently start to just move your eyes very slowly in a small window of, like a small window radius, right? So just a slow scan. And then gently and slowly stilling that movement into a soft focus. And keeping that soft focus, we start to bring our awareness into the breath. And it's just that gentle awareness of the breath moving in and out through the nose, keeping the eyes open. So we're just in a awareness at the moment. We're just holding this awareness of the breath, noticing the inward movement of the breath through the nose and noticing that outward movement of breath through the nose. And on the next in-breath, that invitation is to soften the body, soften the mind, soften the emotional body. As we gently deepen the breath, taking that breath down into the belly, expanding that breath into the belly. And as we breathe out, relaxing and letting go, surrendering. And on the next out breath, the invitation is to gently close your eyes, gently letting them drop down, resting your eyelids. And again, holding this awareness of the breath as it's moving in through the body and out through the body. Just inviting the body to notice the breath and to soften with each inhale. And to relax and let go with each exhale. And as you do that, scan into the emotional body and the mental body, just noticing any thoughts which are arising, any emotions which are arising. And we invite our awareness just to observe the thoughts, observe the emotions. And we surrender them, we completely let them go with the out-breath, not holding them, not wanting to change them. Softening the body to be in complete acceptance and allowing of what's being noticed. And we gently start to prepare ourselves to transition into breath work. So keeping the eyes closed, you may want to turn your eyes towards your third eye. Or if that's not comfortable, you can turn your eyes towards the tip of your nose. So as your eyes are closed, turning them either to the third eye or the tip of the nose, and gently opening your mouth as if there's a very thin straw. And we breathe in, inhale through the mouth, straw-like inhale. So we're sipping that air in, so it will make a sound, and exhaling through the nose. And bring your awareness into the contrast, noticing that cold, sharp air as it's hitting the palate, maybe even moving down the throat. And really dropping your awareness and connecting into the warmth of that air as it flows out, feeling it moving through the nostrils and out through the nostrils. So our entire focus and awareness is on this breath. And we'll do that for 2 minutes. Softening the body as we breathe out. Last breath cycle, going into your last in-breath and exhale. And once you've exhaled, going back into that diaphragmatic breathing, dropping that breath down into the belly. So closing your mouth now, just breathing in and out through the nose. And it's coming into that awareness of the body now. Noticing any shifts, scanning through the physical body, scanning through the emotional body, the mental body, the energetic body, and again holding the awareness of whatever's being noticed and letting it go. And on the next in-breath, we gently open our eyes again, softly focusing them on an area, coming back into that breath, deepening that awareness of the breath into the belly. Really surrendering as we let go. So 2 more breath cycles, deep in-breath. Softening the body as we breathe in, and as we breathe out, completely softening, relaxing, letting go. And on that last out breath, closing the space.